First and foremost, I would like to thank the Radyoteknoloji Congress for inviting us and all the people who has made this possible. We're really happy to attend, and we're really happy to hear all the great things here from Turkey within Radyoteknoloji. And as I saw on the map outside, it's really not that far away, Denmark and Turkey, if you look at it. So that was really pretty nice. And I would also say the notion is, well, what we're going to talk about here is a lot of IT. And when we're talking IT, we are not really that far away from each other, I think. Of course, I would like really some input at the end of this lecture, and then we could discuss it a little bit further also. This is really a joint lecture between me, Erik, Gunnar, and René, who's standing there. I will take you through a little bit of the past, present, and future within IT in the radiology department, and René will bind together the threads. So he will talk a little bit about competencies for the system administrator within the radiology department. Okay, so the evolution in radiology has really gone and really exploded in the 90s, the 1990s, with the digitalization of course, images, and going from hard copy images, very old school, going with digitalization, having PACS systems, having modalities, delivering digital images to the radiology department. So that was really the first revolution within IT in radiology. This really also created the PACS system that everyone uses today, where we can store images, of course, for the radiologist to diagnosticate with. Okay, so what really happens when we have digitalization? The next step, the next natural step would be interoperability. And when I talk interoperability, you really think that it's modalities connected with PACS systems, it's RIS system connected with EMRs, electronic medical records, it's the EMR connected with outside of the hospital, general practitioners, systems, and so on and so on. So we have a lot of systems working together. And of course, this is connected with a lot of IT, with a lot of standards, which also in the 80s and the 90s really came through for radiology. We have a lot of standards, especially in DICOM and in HL7, that we use to communicate. So it's pretty much standardized, these streams from system to system. And when you have a lot of digitalization, when you have systems playing together, of course, you also have a lot of mobility. And that's also what we experienced here in the 2000s, where we see not only a mobility within the radiology department, but also a mobility within patients going from hospital to hospital, going to the hospital that has the specialization that's required for their disease. So this really is a big challenge in IT, because mobility really needs to be connected to the way you put your IT enterprise solution together. So what's happening is you have a lot of components, a lot of hospitals, a lot of specialties working together with systems that has storage images. So you have PACS systems within the radiology department. You could also have PACS systems that is from another hospital. You could have PACS systems from another region, and so on and so on. But you also have specialties within, for example, radiotherapy, within cardiology, that also has these mini PACS systems or larger scale PACS systems that you also want to connect to. So that really means that we have a lot of data in our in-house, in our hospital system. And that creates a lot of opportunities, of course, but also a lot of difficulties and challenges when you need to access the right data at the right time. We have patients that, as I explained, have a lot of mobility. Anyway, that's what we're experiencing in Denmark. And when you need to see images for a certain patient, then you really need to access not only your own system, but also all the other systems, because this patient is so mobile. He could be having taken pictures or images from another hospital that you really need to know about before going on with treatment of this patient. So we have a lot of data, and it's a lot of unstructured data. What we're seeing right now, which is the present, and also what we're working on in the future, is we have a lot of archives that are connected with a registry. So you probably have heard this, but the VNAs, the vendor neutral archives, is really where the vendors right now are looking into possibilities for regions and countries, actually, having the image sharing as a possibility for a hospital. So what you need to do with big data is, that's unstructured, you need to really structure it. So you need certain kind of metadata that's really binding the patients together, the images together, the certain kind of studies that are made, so you have the right image at the right time for your operation. This in Denmark right now, we have a lot of challenges with IT security because of this problem, with a lot of data placed in a lot of places, with copies everywhere. And this really is the next step for us to figure out how we're going to solve this without breaking any laws, without having legislation going at the radiology department, because it's a major problem. What we're seeing right now in Denmark is you really need to have the right rights to access data. You can't access anything at any time. That would be preferable, but you really need to have a kind of relation to what you're actually doing. And this is very difficult when you have systems that really offer you everything with no filtering. Okay, so that was shortly, briefly, a little bit about what's the past, present, and future within IT in radiology. What we really like to talk about here today is the system administration for the IT in radiology department. As you can see, of course, it requires a lot of the system administrator, and I'm talking both RIS and PACS systems here. What we see is there is a kind of view on the radiographer, and there has been it hasn't really changed for many years. So in the beginning, in the 80s and the 90s, when we needed system administrators for handling these IT in our departments, we saw radiographers. Maybe they had some kind of IT flair and they thought this was kind of interesting, but they really didn't have the qualifications for handling this. So in the 90s, it was actually just, radiographers being named system administrators. And as you can see in the below on this slide, the way it was, it's really a mess, a spaghetti of IT. It was really something quite difficult to figure out what was really going on here. What was really the purpose of the system administration? What was the goal of the department within images, within patient data? And the need was really to clean up this spaghetti and really streamline everything. This, of course, had some kind of, this was a challenge for the competency of this radiographer. I was standing in a position where he needed to do administration of a system he really didn't have the formal competencies to handle. So what really happened was a kind of learning by doing a really slow process, that is, where you went from, well, a radiographer traditionally focuses a lot on patient care, of course, and really the mix between patient care and technology. So, and it was really moving a lot against having some kind of organizational support for the whole department and maybe the whole hospital and other hospitals. So a really big change in how you see your world, going from patient care to a more organizational view. Also, when we're talking workflows, and workflows are very important when we're talking IT, of course. What we see is as a radiographer, is that you have a patient and you pretty much know the patient workflow. The patient comes into your department, is going to a room where you need to take some images, and then the radiographer meets the patient, checks the patient ID maybe and the name, and so takes the images and so on and so on. So it's really a patient-oriented workflow. When we're talking IT, of course, it's more of a data workflow, and it's more of a component workflow between systems. Again, a little bit, you're taking the view away from the patient here and going a more IT view side. Also, what we're seeing is, of course, IT is developing not only within radiology or healthcare, it's developing everywhere and with rapid speed. So in the beginning, maybe as a radiographer or radiologist, you were kind of a member of certain projects when you buy a new modality or you buy a RIS or PACS system. But really the change is now you look more into, as an administrator, that you're really in the project lead for these kind of buys. And that is, of course, because you have a lot of knowledge on this. And you also have to be in charge of the implementation locally in your department. So a whole lot of happened, and a whole lot of competencies has to be built on to be a system administrator in your radiology department. So on one side, we really have this clinical view, this clinical side of the system administrator, which is really good because he knows the workflow in the organization, and he knows patient care, and he also knows a lot about taking images, and he knows what an image should contain. But the problem is, if he doesn't really have that formal competency within IT, and he's maybe lacking some severe DICOM qualities, some severe HL7 knowledge. And these two things, the clinical view and the IT view, he needs to bind together. And of course, it is two different worlds, but still it's possible to close this knowledge gap. And I think Renee will talk a little bit more about that. We will have questions afterwards, so you can question the both of us about IT and RIS and PACS system administration. So, but Renee, would you go on?
Hello. Oh, that's the wrong way. Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about the competences needed, seen both from the IT side and how we work it into the clinical side. If you see here, this is an overview image of one of the RIS integration systems in our region. This setup is one of three. They are kind of similar, and then again, they are not similar at all. When you as a system administrator have to work with all these integrations with the EMR, you need to have to the DICOM, to the PACS, you have to have integrations to all the different systems, because when you see an enterprise solution of a hospital today, 90% of the patients go through radiology, and since 90% of the patients go through radiology, everybody wants to know what's happening in radiology, and you need to be able to share this data. And not all of the clinicians will be able to read the needed data in the EMR, so you need to present the data in different ways. So when you are in a situation where you have, if you come from a clinical background and goes to a system administrator, there is a really steep learning curve. And this learning curve is based on, as Paul Erik said, it's learning by doing. We in Denmark started like 5 years ago trying to mix it up with both clinicians, radiographers, and IT people handling this. We did this mainly because there was this gap that Paul Erik talked about. If you cannot communicate with your vendor, if you cannot speak the same language as your vendor does, then you can't ask for the right solutions. And if you can't ask for the right solutions, you might end up spending a lot of money on something that you didn't ask for because you don't understand each other. Also, if you have the system knowledge, where if you see it from an IT perspective, you come with a background knowledge in data streams and the infrastructure of the IT systems, you will know and you will be able to share this information. But as soon as you come with the clinical view, you have to take the more humanistic view of things as well. Because I myself come from IT, so I have learned a lot by being in the administrator role in the hospitals, but I cannot do it alone. There's so many laws, there's so many specialities there that requires a special skill set. So if we want to make a really good road for ourselves in the future, we need to combine the best of two worlds. We need to combine it in a way that shows we can communicate with each other, we can share this data, and if we want to share it in the big picture from hospital to hospital, we need to be able to put our minds together. And if you in Denmark at least, we have the issues with when we share image data from one hospital to another. If you send an image, or if you look at an image from another hospital and you do a change, which one should the next person who looks at the image at, which one is the right one? Is it the person from the hospital that actually took the image, who has the legal binding right to the image, or is it, on the other hand, the people who did the last editing of the images? These are things that are really problematic to agree on, and also to structure in a data kind of way. And in Denmark, we are doing the 5 regions in Denmark are doing a collaborative XDS archive where no matter where your radiology image is taken, you'll be able to see it in whatever hospital you arrive in Denmark. And this has been a work in progress for 5 years now, almost 5 years, and all the regions are now ready to connect these things. But not only has it been an IT issue, it's also been a political issue. You need to have the people with the knowledge to put in the time, and they need to have their head of department allowing them to put in the time, because these competences that you need to build up to be able to make these tough and very important decisions, they don't come easily. In Denmark, we realized that there is no place where you can find these competencies in close proximity from Denmark. So with the Danish Radiographer Union, we tried to establish system administrator seminars. We connected with lecturers from abroad, and with them we made sessions in Denmark, 3 or 4 days, where system administrators came to get a deeper knowledge of the basics and the fundamentals of DICOM HL7 communication. Today, the people that came, they work with DICOM HL7 on a very basic level. After the seminars, they were able to look into the DICOM and HL7 messaging and error handling. They would be able to look into the integration, see why are the study time not available for me, the EMR. Why can I not see that my patient is done in radiology, so I can provide fast care for the patient? Why am I not notified as soon as there is an answer ready? All these data that's inside these messages, you will now be able to see the errors and fix them. of course, it's not something you just fix because, again, it's a huge enterprise. So to do it the best way, you need the best of both worlds, because neither the IT or the clinical side have the competences to do both at a really high level. Yeah, I think that's the way we need to go. We need to focus our energy on helping each other, using what's best from whatever we learn from our education, either if IT or if it's a radiographer. Thank you.
Okay, and we hope you have a lot of questions. We are willing to answer that.
Is there any question for our colleagues? Would you like to ask?
Maybe I have a question for the audience.
Maybe I will ask some questions, yes.
Nice.
It is not a question actually, but I would like to ask that, do you have any stories about the handicaps of the digitalization? Maybe you have some stories, because, okay, digitalization is in nowadays it's the best way in the radiology. We agree this all. But do you have some handicaps still and should be solved in the near future? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I would say there was a lot of handicaps with digitalization and IT, of course. But really the main thing right now, anyway, from our perspective, is IT security.
IT security.
Yeah, it is the most important thing for us. Yeah. It's also the most important thing because we are at a stage where we are right now, where we're really exchanging images from region to region, in principle also from country to country, for learning, for peer review and so on. So security for images and ownership of the images, who owns the images, is really a question mark right now. Is it the patient? Is it the doctor that needs to relate this to some kind of treatment, or who owns these images? So this is a big question mark in Denmark right now, and will need to be discussed a lot going forward. Yeah.
As we know, the whole world changing the system security to the open sources codes. Let's say instead of Windows, they prefer Linux, for example, in the system administration. Actually, security issues, you know. Is there some tests that you are applying on the behalf of open sources system security?
We are bound up on the regional IT policies. So all servers run today on a Windows platform. We have a few PAX archives that run on our Unix servers, but they connect and integrate with the Windows platform's applications without a problem. We've been lucky enough in our region to have vendors who've been ready to connect directly to the Windows platform. So, I mean, there is a lot of connectivity issues, but the main thing it's again about the sharing of the data that we have, because the EMR asks for a lot of information, but we have a lot more to offer. But we also need information the other way. For example, in radiology, you always ask, are you pregnant? What's your weight? And you have the EGFR measurements for contrast. All this data is, if you had this data available without having to ask or go to a second system, if you could connect this data into RIS, if the EMR or the laboratory system would offer this system for availability, then we could be more efficient in our work and we would have more time to the patient. In general, it would probably end up us just serving more patients, but it would still give us a better treatment, a faster and more patient-focused treatment.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, but also when you're saying when we're talking handicaps or challenges, there's always an opportunity also there somewhere hidden. And maybe to have, I had some time just to think while Renee was talking. Really what we're doing right now is also taking ownership of our systems. And we are also thinking maybe open source or developing our own IT systems within the departments, really. I'm currently in a project where we're buying a new risk packs for our region, which is about 1.5 million exams a year. So it's pretty big. And we're really talking about ownership of our IT system. So that's the opportunity right now. But you really need to have a lot of knowledge of what you're doing, because if you don't have that, you can't really put your demands into writing, and then you will have a system that's really not good when you bought it. So what we're moving away from is really this kind of vendor lock that's been going on for maybe 20, 30 years, and we really want to be free from that vendor collaboration. Not that we're saying it's not good, but really we need to own our own systems because we have a lot of knowledge in them and we can develop them ourselves.
This was my second question, but you already answered it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. Is there any question? Yes, please.
Özür dileyerek soruyorum. Belki kaçırmış olabilirim. Bahsedilen sistemde özel ya da kamu ayrımı olmadan bütün ülkeyi mi Ozan tercüme edebilirsen ya da özel ya da kamu ayrımı olmadan tüm ülkede uygulanılan bir sistem mi? Yani bizimdeki devlet hastaneleri sistemi mi sormak istediğim, yoksa bütün ülkede bütün görüntülemelerinde yapan İstanbul'da yapan Ağrı'da görebiliyor mu? Onu sormak istiyorum. Herhalde Ulusal'da bir firmaya ait sanıyorum bu kullandıkları sistem. Ulusal diyecektim ama onları zaten kendileri yapıyorlar. Yapmayı istedikleri hedeflerde herhalde ulusal bir sistem kurmak, değil mi? Doğru anlamış mıyım? Sen teyit edeceksin.
She want to ask that.
So I guess the question was that the current system we're buying, a little bit about that. Well, we don't have national systems in Denmark, but we have a collaboration of systems in Denmark. So we have 5 regions in Denmark that are working together, and we're really trying to bind those new systems together. But it's a long process. Before binding anything together, you really need to demand that it's possible. So it's kind of a process. Someone is further along than others. And I would say we're really trying to look into this image sharing as the most important value right now for buying IT systems. And not only image sharing, but really binding systems together. So that's what the public wants, that's what the patient wants. But we don't have really a national strategy on the area, sadly. I don't know if that was the answer to your question, but yeah.
Bir şey daha sormak istiyorum hazır böyle bir konu açılmışken. Hasta hakları üzerinden, hastanın bilgiliği, gizliliği üzerinden bir sisteminiz, hukuksal bir sistemi de var mı? Yani bu da kişinin kendi sağlık verilerinin başka birilerinin eline geçmesini sağlayacak bir sistemdir. İleride buna benzer de sorunlar açacak mıdır sorusunu sormak istiyorum.
There was a little bit of a hole in that question, but for the IT way. But the security of the patient data, that was the question. Can we establish that? It's really something that we need to, because we won't put any IT system into work without handling this. It's of course a big issue, and it's of course a big challenge, but right now, you could say, as it is in Denmark, the images are safely behind firewalls, safely behind the hospital IT system. So it's not accessible in any way, either than if we give permission to it. So what we really would like to is giving permission to the patient data, because we want to share it, but it needs to be done in a secure way. And back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, who owns the data? We really want the patient to own the data. That's what we think. So, and as you're nodding, I could say that's really also what you're thinking, and I'm happy that we agree, because this is a cardinal point for everything. I don't think it's that way today, but I think it's the way it should be. And of course, we're building IT systems that could handle this, but it is a process. We're not there really yet.
Can I elaborate a little bit on that? We also, since we are looking into buying this new system for the region on the wrist and the backs, in 2018, in May, the European Union is passing a new patient data law, so that really puts us on our toes, because now we have the ability to push the vendors to follow the rules, because the rules that are set today are outdated in some ways, and also why they're coming a new patient data law from the European Union. This gives, for example, it gives the patient the right to say, you are no longer allowed to store my data, because it should be the patient's data. So it should now be inaccessible. Or it also gives the possibility to opting in, opting out of the sharing of images between hospitals. You could have or even the answer to your own private physician. If you have some kind of illness that you, for some reason, you don't want to share the data, or it's something that you feel is very personal and it's in the past, for example, you can say, this data is no longer allowed to be shared. This is something we need to keep our vendors on the toes and make sure that they hold up their end of the deal, because this is something that is on everybody's minds, and it's something that's in focus for the patient and giving the patient the right of their own data.
Benim birbirine bağlı birkaç sorum olacak. Bir tanesi, dataları tutarken lokal PAX serverlar mı tutuyorsunuz, yoksa merkezi bir PAX serverda mı tutuyorsunuz dataları? Diğer hastaneler birbirlerine VPN yapısıyla mı bağlı ve farklı bir hastanenin görüntüsünü açarken yaklaşık kaç saniyede bu görüntü açılabiliyor?
Okay. Today we have one central database for these 12 hospitals that are in our region. They are all connected to a VNA, and you can open the images without a VPN, because in Denmark we have something called healthcare data net. So all hospitals are already connected on a same subnet, so they are all connected with a high-speed internet connections. So opening an image, of course it really depends on what kind of image you're loading, but time to first image is 1 to 2 seconds, and if it's 400 to 1,000 images, you will have the entire study in 5 to 6 seconds on a bad day.
Yeah, it was very significant presentation. I would like to thank you, both of you. Please, applause.